On Zoom. Okay. If everybody, for people who are not yet going to be asking questions or anything, if you would hit that mute button.
I've got stuff out to make another one.
Over on the left-hand side of your screen where it says mute way at the bottom. And then when we get to the part where we're going to be encouraging questions and discussion, you can open up your mic for us. There's your person, Mary Liz Unique is here.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Pat, as the host, you probably have the ability to mute other people.
Well, we were looking for a couple of our participants, which is why you hadn't muted already.
Yeah. Also, Pat, Franz is coming on from his computer at home. He was having some connection difficulties, so he's coming as well.
Okay, and he's signed on by name, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Someone was just suggesting, Paula, that we could mute the attendees. Okay. They said, I'm Pat Maxon. I'm from the I'm the membership co-chair for the League of Women Voters. I'm also a proud member of the Educational Events Committee and of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Work Group. And these are the people who put heads together and said, we would really like to have this program this evening. Those of you who know a little bit about the League of Women Voters, I hope will not mind me repeating very quickly that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We operate at the national, state, and local levels. Our mission is to encourage informed and active participation in government. The League of Women Voters works to increase understanding of major policy decisions, influences public policy through education and advocacy. And for the frequently asked question, no, we are not all women. Anyone who'd like to support those kind of mission is welcome to be a member. Tonight's program is the work of our Educational Events Committee, as I said, and the League's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Work Group. We've partnered with Albany's Underground Railroad Education Center and the Young Abolitionist Leadership Institute. I personally followed the discussion of what to do about Phil in the newspapers, on local TV news, and in innumerable conversations with friends and family. I'm eager tonight to hear what went into making this momentous community decision by our students. In just a moment, I'm going to turn the program over to Underground Railroad Education Center directors, Mary Liz Stewart. But a couple of minutes of instruction, I'd ask that the audience hold your questions until the speakers have finished their main presentation. If there is an urgent need for some kind of clarification or there's something going wrong in the telecast, please put your question in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat during the presentation. And without further delay, I'd like to just say a couple of words about our marvelous moderator and host this evening. Mary Liz Stewart is co-founder with Paul Stewart, and she is the executive director of the Underground Railroad History Project of the Capital Region. She is a resource and has shared the Underground Railroad Project with our community for the last 20 years. Mary Liz was educated at the College of St. Rose, at Loyola University Chicago, and at Albany Medical Center School of Nursing. She has experience as a classroom teacher, a registered nurse, an executive director, and I would say general of volunteer armies par excellence. I would like to ask you all to raise your hands and help me welcome our moderator for the evening, Mary Liz Stewart. Take it away.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you, Pat. I hope I can live up to your introduction. Oh gosh. And I want to say thank you also to the League of Women Voters of the Albany chapter for reaching out to Underground Railroad Education Center to arrange for the program this evening. We do have right now, let's see, we have, Junique Huggins? Junique, can you unmute and turn on your video so everybody can welcome you? I know Franz Gopalsing, who is one of our current Young Abolitionist Leadership Institute participants, he's trying to log in. He's having some technological difficulties, so I'm hoping if we all send him positive vibes, he will be able to join us. And then Raymond Reynoso, who is sitting in on a test right now, will be joining us as soon as he is able. So we'll take it away here. Let's see, Junique, there you are. Hey, Junique, good to see you. Glad you're here. Junique, could you take a minute or two to tell folks who you are, what you're doing, where you're zooming in from? And
hi, good night, everyone. I'm Junique. I'm at school right now. I attend the University at Buffalo. I'm currently getting my bachelor's in business administration. I'm a sophomore. Graduated from Albany High, and yeah, I'm here.
And Junique, I'm going to spill the beans here. As I recall, your GPA last year was it a 4.0? Did I get that right?
Close enough. It was a 3.89, but it's close to
wow. Oh wow. So and Junique, how many years were you part of YALI?
I started in 2021, so I think I was there for like a good year and some months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know you were also, during the school year you participated, and then summertime, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Well, I'm glad you could make it in. So I think perhaps, how about Junique?
Franz has joined us, just so you know.
Wonderful.
Franz,
There he is.
Missed him joining.
Thank you, Paula. Franz, can you
turn
on your video so you can share with us a little bit about yourself? Oh, cool.
Can you hear me?
Wait, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Let me turn on my video real quick. Okay.
That would be nice.
I see it.
Okay, well, Fran's turning on his video. Just so everyone knows, there are more students who are involved with Young Abolitionist Leadership Institute. However, jobs and school commitments and such have impacted availability this evening. So I'm very pleased that Junique could join us, Franz can join us, and as I mentioned, Ray Reynoso is planning on checking in with us when he finishes his test. He's hanging his hat at RPI this year. So Franz, whenever you're available.
Yeah, I'm trying to click start right now. I don't know, maybe it's a settings thing.
Okay, well, how about if can you introduce yourself to the folks who are online with us this evening?
Yeah, my name is Franz Gopalsing. I was one of the teens that helped out with what to do with Phil and the renaming of the Philip Schuyler Academy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the elementary school.
That's right. So what's the what used to be the Philip Schuyler Academy, Franz? What's the new name going to be?
The new name is going to be Roots Academy.
Yeah, so we're all anxiously awaiting the announcement when the new sign is up. It hasn't gone up yet, so we're looking forward to being part of that celebration. So perhaps, I would maybe if I can just give a little bit of background, then I'd like to turn things over to Franz and Junique to share their recollections of the process that we went through. It was across a full school year that the What to Do with Phil focus group was meeting. We met every Tuesday. We did also have some meetings on school breaks when we were engaging in some research that took us to the Albany County Hall of Records and the Albany Public Library, as well as some other spaces. And it was an effort. It was an effort actually that was initiated by Mayor Kathy Sheehan, actually calling me in August of I think it was 2021. There had been some expression of interest before COVID shutdown to do something with the Philip Schuyler statue, which, as I'm sure you all know, had been standing on a small circular island in front of City Hall. And Mayor Sheehan had asked if I could work with a group of teens who would be part of a focus group to come up with an answer to the question, what to do with this Philip Schuyler statue. Well, I said that we'd be happy to do that, but we would need some time to do our research, to investigate aspects of this question before we would come up with an informed response. And so we did do that. We put our heads together, and as I say, spent multiple Tuesdays plus other days together. And so here we are this evening. So if Junique and Franz, if you two would be willing to share what you recall of that experience. And then my thought is, I can fill in comments when you two are finished and we can have a conversation. So I don't know, Franz or Junique, who would like to start?
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
So you specifically want me to start on how we got started?
I would say, sure, if you want to start from there and essentially talk about, your experience with the process of responding to this question.
Okay, so how we got started and how we thought about the question of what to do with Phil. We started with splitting into groups and finding out who really was Phil. And after that, we moved on by like talking about him as a person, talking about his achievements, talking about what he really did and what else, that was happening around him. Like we found out that he owned slaves. We found out that he had a mansion, just in Albany. We found out that he was a war hero, but there was much more to it than just him being a war hero. You know what I mean? And that was the reason the statue was put up. We found the reason for the statue even being put up in the first place. And we found who put up the statue as well. Like we found all these different aspects of why Phil, was put up in the first place, why he had a school, why multiple things around him. Like, we found out multiple mysteries about Phil when we were talking about what to do with Phil. First, we had to find out who he was too.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Franz. Shall we turn it over to Junique and let her share from her experience and what she remembers?
Yeah, so I remember we had got the question, and it was like, first of all, we knew we had to put a lot of research into this because this would affect the community around us. So yeah, like Franz said, we did a lot of research, found out why they put the statue up and who put the statue up. And then we looked into other stuff about Philip Schuyler, like the schools that he had around, names of parks that he had of him, like his whole the house that he had for him. So yeah, I felt like one thing that we wanted to do was make sure that we just wasn't removing him from the history of Albany, but like making sure that he was still included too. So yeah, it was a group effort.
Thanks, Unique. Franz, did you want to add anything else? At the moment, because there'll be time for, you know, a little more conversation too.
Honestly, I think what else to add was we, instead of just investigating Phil, we investigated other statues, like Unique said. And when we investigated them, like we went to the statues around Albany, and we found out like 3 different things about them, and we related it to like each statue. So it would be like meaning, who is this person here and who created it. Like it'd be like, I think it'd be those 3 things. And the reason we did that was because we had to find out if Phil was really like the only statue here that was controversial. And Phil, of course, wasn't the only one that was controversial. There's multiple. And as we found that out, we were like, wow, like this is crazy, because it's not just Phil, it's multiple other statues around the city. But the reason we're focusing on Phil is because he was disrupting traffic. And he, of course, it was because he was in front of the mayor's office, you know? And I remember Mary Liz talking about how Phil, he really didn't make others like feel welcome, because if you were Black, obviously, you wouldn't feel welcome into the mayor's office because they have a giant slave master right in front of it. You know what I mean? So some people, they wouldn't feel welcome at all. And that would make sense to me, because what are you going to do? This is crazy. Mayor's office has a giant slave master right in front of her office, and we can't really do nothing about it, or at least we thought we couldn't do anything about it, but you see now it's gone.
Thanks, Franz. Janique, did you want to add anything else at the moment? Okay. Well, feel free to jump in as you see fit. What I'd like to do is provide a bit of context for what Franz and Janique have shared. When we had our very first focus group session, which we held, as I mentioned, on a weekly basis, we met at Albany High. One of the very first thing that I chose to do was to ask the students to break into small groups and determine a plan of action on how we might go about addressing this question. What steps ought we to consider in working through a response to this question? And I have to admit, it was truly delightful for me, because while the small groups worked, you know, very industriously, when we all came back together, the plan of attack, as I usually call it, the plan of attack that was designed by each of the small groups were incredibly aligned. And so it allowed us to sort of step off together into the work process that we engaged in. Some of the questions that were posed in our research together were questions such as, what makes a hero a hero? What kinds of values do we hold what kinds of values do we hold as a community that we would like to portray through some visual representation? Can we think about portrayal of these values in ways other than images of people? There was also, I'm looking at the report that was compiled after the school year ended and all of the work the students had done was put together into a comprehensive whole. And one of the tools that we use to, you know, sort of educate ourselves on the topic of statues and monuments was from a document that was put together by titled National Monument Audit, which was put together by a group called Monument Lab. They had received funding from the Mellon Foundation to investigate monuments and statues around the country and compile data related to their investigation. And our Yali teens did agree with the Monument Lab research that said monuments do more than just help us remember. They make our society's values visible. Monuments function as platforms for civic power and shaping public memory. So as we talked through this, trying to apply these ideas to our local Philip Schuyler statue, there was some concern and consideration of the fact that, yes, Philip Schuyler was historically was a man who portrayed some admirable qualities, but that was not all that he represented. And as Franz had made reference to, being being an enslaver and heavily invested in the institution of enslavement, that really did give us pause and pushed us to try to dig deeper into the who was Philip Schuyler, but then also, and how is he remembered historically? But also, we thought it was valuable to take a look at who funded the design of the statue, who funded its installation, why was Philip Schuyler selected? And I do remember we all were a little bit puzzled that the Schuyler statue, at least according to historic records, particularly some relayed through local historic newspapers, indicated that the Schuyler statue was paid for and installed by a Mr. Hawley, who was paying tribute to his wife. So of course I remember looking at each other one Tuesday and saying, why is there a male statue? Why was a male statue, a male figure, selected to pay tribute to Mrs. Hawley? And we honestly never could find an answer to that question. But nonetheless, it did give us a little bit of pause. And I would like to highlight something that Unique said early on. It struck a chord with me, because there was, in our investigation, and in news reports, it was very apparent that people in various communities around the United States were making a variety of choices on how to respond to and deal with the statues in their communities that they felt were not representative of the community. And so, in looking at those options, certainly some communities were destroying statues. And I do remember in our conversation, in the focus group conversation, we all agreed that that was not a choice we would encourage. And Unique put some words on it for us when she said, I don't want to cancel anyone's culture. My culture has been canceled. I do not want to do that to anyone else. So that clearly set a bar for us that pushed us to say, okay, this is not an option, that we're not going to promote the destruction of a statue, but rather we agreed we're going to promote a response to what to do with Phil that, yes, recognizes the sort of the valuable qualities this man portrayed, but also recognize the full context of his life, so that we remember that, yes, he was an enslaver and allowed to do what he did and be remembered for what he did, because the people who were enslaved to him were providing him, were taking care of those daily needs that he, in turn, was able to not have to worry about. So he was freed up to do things for which he is routinely remembered today. So those are some of the things that entered into our investigation. Another piece that I'd like to mention before stopping my chatting, has to do with the investigation into statues and monuments currently in existence in the city of Albany, and Franz made a reference to that. We actually, because of time limitations, we could not visit every single statue and monument that currently sits or is located in the city of Albany, but we were able to visit 17 of those statues. And what we found in these, I should say statues and monuments, because some of them were monuments. Of those 17, only one of the 17 contained an image of a Black woman. Only 3 contained, including the one reflecting the Black woman, only 3 of the 17 reflected Black residents of Albany. And of the 17, only 3 were not paying tribute to some war or conflict engagement. So again, it was a limited investigation. We were hoping to visit every single monument and statue in Albany, but time did not allow that. So but we offer that information as a bit of an insight into who's been remembered, how those individuals have been remembered through the statuary and monuments that we currently have in Albany. And then, really the ultimate question for the students that the students raised was, what do we do now? We did as a group, made a recommendation to Mayor Sheehan that the Philip Schuyler statue should be retained but relocated. There was agreed belief that having a statue of an enslaver in front of City Hall, as Franz was referencing, was a building that should be open and welcoming to every individual in the city. We felt that having Schuyler relocated would be a respectful choice, and then also making an effort to tell his fuller story. And one suggestion that did come up from the group was that the city of Albany arrange for, on the city website, arrange for a page that would contain detailed information about each of the statues and monuments in the city of Albany. So that was, a proposal that was part of the final recommendation to relocate the Philip Schuyler statue. As for where to relocate, there were some options considered. With some of the potential challenges were ideas that suggested moving the statue to state-owned property, the Philip Schuyler Mansion here in Albany, for instance, or it's the Schuyler Estate up in Schuylerville, but of course that's part of the National Park Service, so that's another whole, governmental layer. So, those are things that certainly needed to be accounted for in the ideas that were raised about, well, where to relocate Phil. There was, interestingly, and I would like to ask your patience to see if I can find the reference in the report so I can relay it accurately. There was a 1952 recommendation to place the Schuyler statue, remove the Schuyler statue from in front of City Hall, and place it in park location. Oh, I think this is it. Place it in it was a public park location. Nope. Between, sorry, I'm not finding it here. What do we do? Where does it go? Oh, there is that. I'm not putting my fingers on it, and I apologize for that. But this 1952 recommendation Oh, here we go. So 1952 newspapers were recording a recommendation to relocate the Philip Schuyler statue to the mall between the Capitol and the Alfred E. Smith building. The suggestion in these newspaper articles was to rename the mall Schuyler Park. What we talked about in our focus group was the thought that, well, you know, Schuyler's already gotten enough coverage here, so perhaps this particular location could be renamed the People's Park, and that over time, additional statues, monuments, and artistic sculptures could be added to the People's Park, which would celebrate and commemorate the contributions of Albany's diverse and rich heritage. So again, those, you know, that was a suggestion that was put forth as well. I wonder, Franz and Junique, any thoughts to share? Anything at all?
Wait, what do you want me to share about?
Well, anything that you'd like to share, what you learned from the process, what you thought about it, how you felt about having the opportunity to work with others to not make a statement, but have an impact on a significant issue in the city of Albany.
Yeah, my thoughts were I was thinking at the time, and I'm still thinking now, that really not all heroes are heroes. Like, not all public figures are really as pure as we make them out to be, and that goes for then, and that still goes for now. You know what I mean? So it helped me like grow as a person. Like, this whole thing, it helped me grow. It helped me widen my view on how I view people. You know what I mean? And during the process of this, it also, like, it showed me that, you know, history could be actually like really fun, because just this whole investigating of Phil and seeing like these things about him that we usually would not know, it made me feel like, you know, made me feel like history was pretty cool.
Thanks, Franz. Junique, can you share, from your experience, how it was, what you learned, what it felt like, how it impacted you?
In the end, I was shocked, but like as we was going through the process, it was like, okay, we doing this. But then when the statue was actually moved,
Yeah.
I was shocked to even see it happen and to know that, you know, I was a part of this impact and could even make a huge impact like this. But I actually loved it. The fact that me and my peers could come together and even discover history and then put our minds together and come up with a solution, and a solution that's fair for everyone and not just cast the whole group of people out, you know? So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks, Junique. I think at this point, we'd be happy to open things up to conversation, questions, thoughts, observations. And I think, let's see, Paula and Pat, can you give us some direction once again? A number of folks, have joined us since we started.
So if you have any questions or comments, we're encouraging you to put them in the chat. And we're going to look and monitor the chat, and then we'll probably ask you, if you want to ask a question, to unmute and ask that question. So here's your chance to put those in the chat.
Because we don't have a lot in the chat at the moment, would you be comfortable with people raising their hands?
That's okay. That sounds fine to me. Yeah, that sounds fine to me. Paula, is that okay?
That's fine with me as well. Good
Sure.
idea. Yeah.
And if people, now that our speakers have made their main presentation, if any of you would like to show us your faces on video, it'd be great to see who's here. I'd like to start a question off, if I may make the privilege of a loudmouth here. For our two young abolitionists, what kind of, you talked about going to the monuments and some of the research that you did. What did you dive into to do your research? You were at the library, I heard. What kind of documents, what kind of things did you end up reading? And
Some of them were probably exciting. Some of them were probably kind of dull. I wonder what your experience was like.
Oh, you want to speak?
Yeah, go either of you first.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll go first.
Oh, I was about to go.
So yeah, we did go to the library, and we went to another place too. I think Mary knows. I forgot what it was called. It's something to do with archives.
The Albany, was that the Albany County Hall of Records that you're thinking
Yeah.
of? Yeah.
Yeah, we went there, and we read. Mary Liz knows what it is because she did for her research of the Underground Railroad. I forgot what those things were called. You remember? It was like it looked like film, but it was like
Oh,
they had newspapers.
you're talking about the microfilm.
The microfilm. There we
Yeah,
go.
it was it was the reels, right? Correct, that we put on the machine? Is
Yeah.
that, yeah, and they showed up on a screen.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that was the
exactly what it was.
microfilm.
That's how we did most of our research on Phil because he's pretty old. I'm not gonna lie. So we did microfilm for him, and we found out information about him through microfilm. And there was some at the library, and there was some at the Hall of Records. Obviously, Hall of Records, they have everything from Albany, so everything was taken, put on microfilm, and we found all of that out. And yeah, some of them were boring because you're literally just reading newspaper clippings, and they did have some jokes on there, but it's from pretty old people. No one's gonna know what they meant by like carriages and stuff, because come on, we don't use that nowadays. But it was pretty funny. I liked it because it literally puts you in history. Like you're literally seeing what they saw, what they woke up to on a day-to-day basis, and they were excited for this. Like, wow, the new newspaper is here. I can't wait.
I
So
think for me,
Uh-huh.
one of the most interesting thing that we found out was that Mr. Hawley put that statue there in honor of his wife. You would think that, oh, maybe the government did it, maybe the mayor at the time did it, but no, he put a statue there in honor of his wife. And I really would like to find out, like, well, how does this relate to your wife? But we don't even know where he is right now. So
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I see that Yvonne has her hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. Well, first, let me congratulate the Young Abolitionists. Hi, Janique. But let me congratulate all of them, and of course, Mary Liz and Paul for getting this project done. As a retired history teacher, I'm very much interested in your take on the removal of the statue, because it was my professional job when I was teaching at Albany High School years ago to teach a U.S. history curriculum, but I also taught an elective class in Black history as well, like a parallel class that looked at the flip side of what we were teaching in the required U.S. history class. So my question to you, young people, is this. It was stated that people of color might feel uncomfortable going into the Capitol, into the City Hall, going past the statue of an enslaver. But it occurred to me that in order to get to City Hall, you have to go down Washington Avenue, okay? You go through Washington Park. You mentioned about reevaluating who are our heroes, who do we celebrate, who do we immortalize by naming things after them. And that came into my mind right away, is that almost every city has a Washington Avenue. Should all of these things be renamed? I mean, I think it is important that young people look at history through a critical lens.
Okay, I'm gonna ask if we can we let
Yeah.
our panelists respond, because we've got a lot of questions in the
Yes,
chat. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
I will speak. I will go first. But like, I don't think renaming will fix the issue, because I think this is like a system issue, like where even as young Black kids, where we need to learn more about our history, diverse history, not just a certain section. Everybody needs to learn about everybody. So I don't think renaming is going to fix the problem. I think it's more of a system issue. So.
And I think the same thing basically, but I get what you're coming from, because this is literally a systematic issue where Washington, he wasn't really a good person, but his achievements, they overshadow what what he really did. So they're like, they at the time, what they do is like, this was all considered normal for the average American. So they're like, okay, we could go over this, because would this really be deemed evil from the eyes of a regular American, as one would say. So they would be like, okay, so if this was deemed normal from the eyes of a regular American, he's pretty chill, like we could let this slide. So they would let all of this like just go, because at owning slaves, all this other stuff, this was all deemed normal. So they would try to they would try to let it slide. And the only reason Schuyler was really gotten rid of, it wasn't due to a racist thing. It was just made into a racist thing. It was due to a traffic thing. You know what I mean? So they got rid of Schuyler. We really only got rid of Schuyler due to the traffic, like because he's interrupting traffic, all this. But like, I'm gonna tell you the truth. It wasn't just because he was just a racist. It was due to the traffic, because Albany, our traffic, our roads, they're kind of bad. So we had to fix that. So I guess we're starting now from scratch, that we're making it about race. We're making it about the people, and we're helping the roads, So they tried to kill two birds with one stone, and I get what they're coming from. And I get where you're coming from too, because yeah, you did this, but now we got to address every other racial issue in Albany now. So I wonder if in the future we could just maybe we could change some of the things that you were talking about, because I feel like we should too. Like some of these roads, some of these people, they shouldn't be idolized, and some of this stuff should not be recognized. So I get where you're coming from, and I think the same exact thing sometimes.
Franz, you have another question in the chat that tends to pertain to this. It says, tell us about the changing name of the school in Albany. So you all have already had a hand in moving this forward. Tell us about changing the name of the school.
Oh yeah. So this kind of builds off of my question anyway, because you see, this turned from like a regular issue that with traffic to a racial issue. So since we really dealt with the problem of the statue, and we turned it into somewhat of a racial issue, now it has to do with Philip Schuyler. Like, we're questioning all of Philip Schuyler, you know what I mean? Anything to do with him, his name, everything. So first thing we got to was the school, and they were voting to rename the school because, Philip Schuyler isn't a good person. So what we did was, like, in between, I think near the end of the statue removing, we got into the school renaming, because they had to vote. And we were thinking of like names and all that. We didn't think we'd actually get one, but we were thinking, and I remember, because we were like, everybody's coming up with a name, but these are all of like people. Like, these people will not be remembered 20 years, 30 years from now. And that's because, like, who's gonna remember them after all of, like, a normal elementary school kid, they would know like guys like Martin Luther King, because he had an impact on the world, and these guys had an impact on like a town level, because we're in Albany. So will these kids really know if they're all, like, most people that's in Albany right now, they're all coming from out of Albany. So we wanted to think, we were like, what would be like a message, like a meaning, instead of just a person? Because I get what they're coming from, but we have to show that everything, like, they don't just have labels of people's names on it. And we did Roots Academy. That was the name of the school that we decided. And that was because like it doesn't have a person's name and it goes to the kids because the kids are the root, you know? Like think of everyone as a plant. They're roots, they're the root of the tree, they're the foundation. Kids are literally the foundation of education, you know what I mean? So I thought that, and we just built upon that, and we thought the name would be good, and we thought it, you know, it was clever and it was smart.
So the work has begun. Well, you've gotten everybody's thoughts popping because now we've got a lot of questions here. One is a really factual one, and it might any of you can answer. Someone was asking how many people were in the Young Abolitionist group that you folks had working with you.
Unique, do you want to answer that one?
Were there like about 10 of us?
Well, I think at the end, we actually were 6. We started out with, so let's see, 1, 2, 3. No, I think we were closer to 10 when we started.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. And then I think by the end we were, weren't we 6? So somewhere between 6 and 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was just for that one focus group. We did have another focus group functioning at the same time with a different focus.
We did hear a little bit about the thoughts about where the statue might be replaced. It wants to know what impact your work in this project is going to have on your future plans for our 2 participants.
I'm gonna let Franz go first.
Okay, so this project, the impact they had on my future plans was it made me think about my career because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of still don't know what I want to do, but I'm thinking of taking the path of history because, you know, when I was like doing all this, I'm like, yo, history is kind of fun now. Like, you know, you just think of it of just like reading a textbook and just writing stuff down, remembering dates, remembering battles, all that boring stuff. I thought it was just that, but there's specific things about history that you can investigate. Like you could do stuff like how Mary Stuart does, and I think that's pretty cool. And you could do anything with history. It's not just focusing on certain like boring aspects of it that would make it boring for you and make it boring for others. Because I thought history was a boring subject, but now it's a subject that kind of like it shows many paths that you could take throughout this subject as well. I've seen people investigate the history of music and art, and I'm like, wow, like I thought we were just talking about old war battles and stuff. So that, you know, that really interested me a lot. That made me interested in history.
Nick, did you want to add?
Yeah, well, for me, the impact it made that doing this project, it let me know that I can make an impact and that I can actually, do something. Because, growing up in like a small town, you think, well, maybe I don't have that much impact, or like maybe I can't do certain stuff. But it let me know like I could actually dream big and I could accomplish it.
Very cool. Lisa, I see that Lisa is expressing a big comment with a question attached to it that has to do with some of the feeling that people have that are opposed to the recommendations that have been made by these students. And I wonder if you want to ask the question, Lisa. Are you there? I don't see her.
And I see Lisa, but Lisa needs to unmute so we can hear you.
Huh. I'm not. I don't know why. All right. Apparently, she doesn't want to answer the question, but so I will ask our panelists. If you can see in the comment, there is an extensive question, and we'll print this out if you can't look at all of it right now. And it talks about some of the objections that people have had to the process, not being open to the whole city of Albany, and to the fact that people had raised funds for this particular statue. And I guess I won't ask you to respond to every one of the facts in this question, but I would ask you if you've had any interaction with people who've been opposed to the actions you've recommended.
Yeah, one time Mary Liz got a crazy email and she had printed the email out and they was like, oh, I think they said something that we don't need to be removing the statue, and they was just going crazy in the email. So we did deal with people opposing this. I think she got multiple emails too. Was it, Mary Liz?
Yes, in fact, very recently, we actually got 2 new email responses that were a result of, announcing the event this evening. So there still seems to be a lot of discomfort, with for some folks on the situation related to both the Philip Schuyler statue and to other statues like it. I'm wondering, did you want to add anything or no?
Yeah, I'll add something.
Okay.
In the email, they did speak about like why we should not be removing the statues and instead should be spending our money on the roads of Albany. And that made sense to me, like, because I like to think about both sides. And I really thought about that, because I was like, like it didn't make sense. Like, it made sense to me, but at the end of the day, I came to the conclusion, like, there's nothing to really think about, because the statue, like, in the first place, we were doing this to help the roads of Albany. And also because what the guy was talking about in the email, it was pretty like how I say, it wasn't critical. Like, he wasn't trying to move forward. He was trying to stay in the past. There are those people out there that really don't try to move forward in life. Like, they don't try to help history and help others move forward. They try to stay where they are. And I guess that's what it was. It attacked the comfortability of people, because they're like, why is everything changing? But not questioning, like, why, like, like, they question why it's changing, but not like, why is it changing? There's 2 different ways to say that. And he just questioned it, but he didn't want an answer. You know what I mean?
I could add something else too. I think when we did this, we knew like what would have came behind of it, like people opposing it and what's not. But like we really took things into consideration, and it was like, Philip Schuyler does have a monument where his house is located. He has parks that's named after him. He even had, is it like a motel that's named after him? I'm not too sure. But like there was other stuff that was named after Philip Schuyler. So we didn't remove the statue and was like, oh yeah, let's get rid of Philip Schuyler. No, that was not our thought pattern, because we did not want to remove history from even the kids that was growing up to know who Philip Schuyler was. Because he did do a lot for Albany at the end of the day.
I think you anticipate a question. Certainly, Paul Stewart has asked some great questions, and I'm watching the clock and worrying about us not getting enough time. But one of the questions Yvonne has just echoed, and that is, has this process taken the students away from the idea of representational images, and you would, is there anybody you'd like to put a hero statue up to today? Each one of them leans back.
Honestly, anybody that's heroic today, that's hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Or would you feel like you would not want to have a statue? I wasn't quite sure what your feeling was when you were finished.
Honestly, like, I don't know about statues now yet, because people are forgotten. And that's what I think. So I don't think a statue is really what we should do now. I feel like it's like more like symbols and meanings that matter more. And yeah, there are people out there like that are unforgotten, you know, they have a legendary status, I guess, like Martin Luther King, people that are in the history books forever, and that are in public textbooks across schools and all that. And I think, like, you know, yeah, there are people out there that have statues like that, and there's still like a dark side to each of them. But I think that, you know, it's pretty like, we don't need this. Like, we don't need a statue. There's other things to represent them than other than just a, you know, a statue.
Thank you.
Do-
Unique,
do-
did you?
I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who I would say, oh, let's have a statue for them. But I think it just goes back to what we was doing of like, well, what defines a hero?
Mary Liz, I'm going to turn it back to your desk to see if I've missed important things.
Okay, I made a brief thought in reference to the last question that was posed. And it makes me think back to conversations that we had when our focus group was working together. And in those conversations, conversations, investigations, we did ask the question, when there is some kind of tribute paid to a value that is represented by an individual, one of the questions we asked was, well, who decided that this individual should be the representation of that value? And the other thing that I do remember we talked about a bit was how when an individual is held up as a model, there is the opportunity for those of us who are not held up as the model to be diminished in our sense of self, because we're not as valuable, we're not as important. And we had a little trouble with that, sort of being accepting of that idea that we hold up an individual from among us. And it doesn't mean people do, individual people do great things, but none of us does it, as we talked about. None of us do anything as solo. We don't live in silos. We do what we do and are able to do what we do because of other relationships that we have, and other people who are around us, and other people doing things before, who precede us and such. So we really did seem to come back to that idea, which again, I think Junique raised very early on, which was publicly illustrating values of a community is an important thing to do, but rather, shouldn't we consider illustrating those values through, as Franz and Junique referenced, through sculptures, and as opposed to, through people, which has historically been, very often what we've done. So, did we work our way through the chat?
I think mostly a couple of different people have said, did you leave us a to-do list about the monuments that you surveyed or wanted to survey? Because you've got a lot of community-minded folks here on this particular chat. So that may be a very interesting next step.
Yes, and I would like to say too that out of the sort of as a complement to the work of the What to Do with Phil focus group, there was a community member that drafted a proposal to establish a commission that would be a City of Albany commission that would focus in on follow-up steps to this work on the investigation of the Philip Schuyler statue. So that was submitted along as an appendix along with the report that the teens had prepared. I'm not sure, I haven't heard any noise from any quarters suggesting that there is energy being put into the formation of a commission. Doesn't mean it isn't, there aren't things being said or, ideas being percolated, but I would put this idea of a commission out there to everyone who's with us tonight for consideration as some next steps, so that we really can, as a body, as a body of representatives of the community move forward in a holistic fashion.
But people are already thinking about particular monuments here in the chat, so do take a look. Some of them are public, and I'm sorry for the other person that I missed. Paula, do you want to, you have announcements for us?
Well, yes, I think this brings us to the conclusion of our program this evening, and I just want to say thank you to Mary Liz Stewart and to both Franz and Unique. They were part of the, as I understand, the 2022 Young Abolitionist Leadership Institute, which I understand this is an institute that happens annually. And that if you would like more information about it, I would encourage you to visit the Underground Railroad Education Center. And also you will find a copy of the full report that was done of the study of the Franz and Unique and their cohorts in looking at what to do with fill, and just the whole fact that we need to, this brings and percolates about how do we come to terms with our racist past, and that's, it's a much bigger question than just a statue. And so it's something for all of us to really consider. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Albany County and the Educational Events Committee, I thank you for attending. I'm going to post in the chat the link to we call it our post-event survey. It is where we ask you what you thought about the program, if you have ideas for other programming. We do programming throughout the year, and most of it has been in a Zoom platform because it makes it easier for lots of people to attend. So those of you who have attended, you will be added to our email distribution of our bulletin. So if you are interested in the League of Women of Albany County, just as far as our programming, or if you want to take a more active role, you will have information to do that. This program is being recorded, and it will be posted to the League of Women Voters of Albany County's YouTube channel, and you will find that link also at our website. So thank you again to Mary Liz Stewart and to the students for this quite informative and engaging program.
Thank you. Thank you.
And anybody who's willing to pop yourself onto your video,